Hi there. Now, the thing I think I get asked about most often with music theory is people asking me about modes. And thinking on it, it's a bit odd that I've gone as long as I have without actually doing a video tutorial on modes, so I thought I'd do a bit of an introductory one now. It's quite a long subject, more than I can comfortably fit into one of these little YouTube videos. So all I'm going to do in this one here is just give you an introduction, a little bit of a background of modes and what they are and where they come from, and introduce the concept basically. In some of the videos in future we'll look at the individual modes in a bit more detail. Now, modes are starting to get into the more advanced part of music theory, so if you're not comfortable and you're not familiar with things like basic scale theory, you're not familiar with the major scale and the natural minor scale, if you don't know theory behind chord construction and being little triads and seventh chords and so on, you might find it a bit difficult to keep up with modes, and some of the stuff that we'll talk about you probably won't get the most value out of it. So if you're not familiar with some of the more basic concepts in music theory, some links down there in the information section on YouTube to some other tutorials I've done. Have a look at those and give yourself a basic grounding in music theory, and then you should be ready to move on to modes. Okay, so what are modes? Well, let's start off by looking at a scale. Start off with a major scale, good old C major in this example. Now the notes in the C major scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, and then back to C at the octave. Or if we think about those in terms of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now if you're familiar with your music theory and your chord construction and so on, you'll know that we can take each degree of that major scale and build chords on it. So we have a C major chord on the first degree, a D minor chord on the second degree, E minor chord on the third degree, F major chord on the fourth degree, G major chord on the fifth degree, A minor on the sixth, and so on. Or we could take those same degrees and build other types of chords. So we could have like a major seventh chord, second degree minor seventh chord, third degree minor seventh chord, fourth degree major seventh chord, and so on. Different chords on each note of the scale. So let's take a look at the fifth chord in a major scale. So in the key of C major, we've got C, D, E, F, G. G is the fifth degree. Now in the key of C major, we'll work out what chord we're going to play there. We end up playing a G dominant seventh. And the reason that we play a G dominant seventh there, the notes G, B, D and F in it, and that's got the formula 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Now if we look at the notes in a G major scale, we've got G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp and back to G. So that F sharp there in the seventh degree doesn't fit into the key of C major. If we want to use an F type note, we need to lower it by a semitone. So instead of having a seventh, the F sharp degree, we have a flat seventh, the F natural degree, which is why the G dominant seventh chord has the formula 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Okay, so if we compare the notes of the G major scale and C major scale, say there's only one difference, and that's the seventh degree. Now what we've been talking about before with chord constructions, we've been talking about building chords on each degree of the major scale, the parent major scale of the key. Now that is what we're doing, but think of it slightly differently. Think of it in terms of building chords from the scale that starts on a particular degree of the key. So in the case of that G dominant seventh chord, what we could say we're doing is we're actually building a chord around a scale that's built on the fifth degree of the major scale. And that scale, which is like this, only has the notes of the C major scale in it. G, A, B, C, D, E, F and G. It's got the formula 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7 in the octave. That scale has got a name. It's called the G Mixolydian mode. A bit of a strange name. Some of the modes have got strange names. Just bear with it. But essentially that's what a mode is. it's an inversion of a scale. It's the notes from a key arranged from a degree of that key, and that means in a major scale where you've got 7 notes in the scale, in that major key you've got 7 modes. Now you know some of those already. Now I know we just looked at the Mixolydian mode, which is the 5th mode of the major scale, but you probably know a couple of others. You know at least one other one. One that you definitely will know is the Ionian mode. The Ionian mode is the 1st mode of the major scale. Okay, so in the key of C major, the first note of C major is C. So if we take the notes of the C major scale, arrange them from C, we get C major scale, yeah? That in modal terms is called the Ionian mode. So the first mode of the major scale, Ionian mode. Second degree of the major scale, in the case of C major that would be D. The mode that we build on that degree of the scale is called the Dorian mode. Third mode of the major scale, built on the 3rd degree, is called the Phrygian mode. Slightly weird spelling. That, in the case of C major, 3rd degree of C major is E, so the 3rd mode of C major will be E Phrygian. 4th mode of the major scale is the Lydian mode. So in the case of C major, 4th degree is F, so it's F Lydian mode that we get in the key of C major. We've seen the Mixolydian mode just before that. It occurs on the 5th degree. 6th degree of the major scale, the 6th mode is the Aeolian mode. Now if you've seen the natural minor scale before, you already know the Aeolian mode. So if you think about when we build a natural minor scale, what we do is we take the notes of the major scale, but we start from the 6th degree, and that effectively is what the 6th mode is. It's the notes of the major scale starting from the 6th degree. So that's why you'll sometimes see the natural minor scale referred to as the Aeolian minor, because it's the formula of the Aeolian mode, 6th degree of the major scale. And lastly, 7th mode of the major scale, that's the Locrian mode. So in the case of C major, in the case of C major, 7th degree is B, so the 7th mode of C major is B Locrian. Okay, let's just have a quick look at the summary of those. Now all of those modes, they've got a different arrangement of intervals between the notes. They've got their own unique formula and they've got their own unique sound. And like I say, what we'll do in some other videos is we'll talk about the individual modes in a bit more detail. All I'm wanting to do in this video really is to give you a bit of a flavour, an introduction to what the modes are. But it's important to understand that they have your own unique sound and there's ways that you can apply them. So for example, looking at that Mixolydian mode that we looked at before, the fifth mode of the major scale. Now, if you were playing in a major key and there was a dominant type chord, so in case of C major, you've got a G7 or a G9 or something like that, you could play over the top of that chord using a G Mixolydian mode. Alternatively, something else you could do is if you've got a whole bunch of chords or a rhythm part where the lowest note you're really accentuating is a G. In the case of C major, you really accentuate the 5th degree. Now the ear is naturally drawn to the lower note, so it'll really pick up on that sound. You could play the G Mixolydian mode over the top of that, because that 5th degree in the bass, the G in the bass, is sort of like implying a Mixolydian mode tonality. And don't worry too much about it for now. I'm not really wanting to get into all about modal application here. I'm just really want to give you an introduction to what modes are. All the modes of the major scale and various other types of scale, they're all contained within PhatPhish. So if you want to start experimenting and finding fingerings for them and looking at the formulas and so on, all the formulas and the notes within the scales and the modes, they're included in PhatPhish, so you can use that for reference as well. Like I say, all we're doing here is just an introduction to the idea of where modes come from. And as you progress the musical journey and you get more familiar with modes and you understand them a bit more, you'll start to see possibly some of the concepts that you've been familiar with for quite a while. You'll start to understand a bit more about why they work. You can learn things about why pentatonics work the way that they do, and and so on. So really that's all for now, just a brief introduction, and hopefully that sort of whet your appetite and you'll be interested in learning some more about modes in a future video. And hopefully I'll see you then. Bye for now.